Now, I'll admit, I haven't exactly always been the biggest fan of Disney's movies, even the Renaissance stuff everyone loves. I just couldn't get into it. So why then am I making a video about Disney movies when I don't care about Disney movies? Well, I've realized lately that the reason I didn't like most of their stuff is because I was burnt out. There was just this huge period of time where I didn't enjoy anything, and unfortunately, that was the time me and my brother decided to watch all of their movies. We didn't get very far, luckily, but I just remember getting so irrationally annoyed at the most petty stuff like, this isn't historically accurate, Hercules should be murdering his family and committing genocide, not going on some fun journey and meeting new friends along the way. Yeah, something tells me that one would have made a very good Disney movie. And so I thought, well, no time like the present to finally sit down with a clear mind and go through their movies. And naturally, I decided to start by checking out 3 of their most iconic and successful movies: Chicken Little, Meet the Robinsons, and Bull. Just to get a real taste of them at their best. Yeah, no, I'm joking, of course. I am working on videos for the other, more popular stuff, but I was just really interested in these 3 movies for some reason. They're just so weird. Plus, the other videos are gonna be like 3 hours long, and this one seemed more manageable to start with. Maybe I'll combine them all into a giant chronological compilation later or something. But for now, these 3 movies interested me because they represent a weird time in Disney's history, where they were being crushed by DreamWorks and Pixar in the box office. Because the movies not only sucked, but also, nobody really wanted to watch 2D movies anymore. After years of Pixar destroying Disney, most people started to associate traditional animation with an outdated and boring movie, and 3D with innovation and good writing. Or at least that's my best guess as someone who isn't born yet. I don't know, feel free to leave a better reason in the comments. So now Disney couldn't make traditionally animated stuff anymore, but they also had no idea how to make CG animation. But they kind of had to, so this is what we ended up with. This kind of rough transition to 3D. Now, as forgotten and unpopular as these movies are today, they were actually very well received by Disney employees in early screenings. People saw them and actually thought there was hope, that Disney would finally be able to compete with Pixar and DreamWorks. But as you know, that's not exactly what happened. So, were these Disney employees just stupid and out of touch with what a good movie was, or did something happen between then and release? Well, I'll give you a little hint in the form of a riddle. What happens when an old white guy who knows nothing about writing forces a bunch of writers to change a movie to what he thinks is better? Okay, got your answer? Good. Now then, I'll be going through each of these movies, giving my thoughts and looking at some of the behind-the-scenes drama that led up to release. So, without further ado, let's finally take a look at Disney's rough transition to 3D, starting with... Now, Chicken Little is definitely the most well-known movie out of the 3, and unfortunately that's not because it was good. I've actually seen Chicken Little before, a long time ago, around when it came out, but all I remember is how annoying the constant shitty licensed music was. That and what others have said about it. But other than that, I don't remember anything. But now that I've seen it, what did I think? Well, where do I start? So right away, I am just hit in the face with the most jarring, brain-rot intro I have ever seen. First, it's a rip-off of Shrek with the stupid fairy tale subversion like, oh, you thought you were gonna watch a normal movie? You thought you were gonna sit down and enjoy a regular fucking film with your family. Well, guess again. Then we get slingshot into this nauseating scene of Chicken Little ringing the skull bell and saying the sky is falling, which makes all the dumb fucks in town go into mass hysteria and start killing themselves, before they all eventually take a second from destroying the town to see what's actually going on. Chicken Little then tells them the sky is falling and points to a stop sign as an example of what the piece of sky looked like. Then a random acorn falls on his head out of nowhere, and his dad, Buck Cluck, picks up said acorn, to which he exclaims, "Don't worry everyone, it was just an acorn." Now, I don't know about you, but does an acorn look anything like a stop sign? So after a year straight of torturing a small child over a disaster they caused, someone is now making a movie about Chicken Little. Not even going into the fact that Buck Cuck probably signed over his son's likeness for that, they could not have made this town more unlikable.
Look, Mama, there's the crazy chicken!
Yes, it is crazy, little chicken. You're so smart. We don't make eye contact. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm sure Chicken Little will grow into a real nice, healthy individual with no long-lasting mental illness. We then get this weird montage of Chicken Little dealing with the consequences of American infrastructure while using his wits to get out of sticky situations. And this entire opening is just so disjointed and weird. It feels like the movie wants me to root for him, but I don't even know who Chicken Little is. Okay, so he's a victim of neglect and relentless bullying from the town, and he's small. And the original Chicken Little Buck, or one of them, the British one, it opens with Chicken Little under a tree talking to herself. That's right, herself, I'll get into that later. She talks to herself about how strong and brave she is before an acorn falls on her head, and she freaks out. It's a simple scene that sets up her character and doesn't blast you in the face with instant regret like the opening for the movie. Anyway, back to the movie. Chicken Little eventually gets through his montage and makes it to school, where we meet the loser squad of this movie. Fish out of water, runt of the litter, yes, those are the real names, and Abby Mallard, aka the Ugly Duckling.
Wandsworth.
You mustn't sneak up on me, ugly, Abby. Where was I?
Did I mention that everyone in this town is a cunt? The fish and pig are really just here for jokes, which are very funny by the way, while Abby Mallard is a big part of Chicken Little's arc. She's constantly trying to get him to talk to his dad, which is pretty nice I guess, but I don't think she understands just how far gone his dad really is. She probably knows a little bit from what she's been told through Chicken Little's rose-tinted version of the abuse, but she doesn't know Buck like I do. Which, I should probably mention that Chicken Little's dad is probably the most criticized part of this movie, which is completely justified by the way. He is pretty much perpetually disappointed in his son throughout this entire movie. Like they never actually show a single moment of happiness together. And even when Chicken Little says he wants to join the basketball team in a heartbreaking attempt to win his dad's love, Buck doesn't go, "Oh damn, my son is clearly trying to win my love. He shouldn't have to do that." No, he's just worried he'll embarrass him again. Like, maybe give your son a little fucking support, you cunt. But yes, Chicken Little joins the soccer team, and naturally, Buck the fuck sits in the back row covering his eyes in shame the whole time, instead of, I don't know, cheering for his son. But no, instead Chicken Little pulls from his horrible trauma to give him enough confidence to win. You know, despite how much shit I'm giving this movie and how unpopular it is in general, including with my brother who absolutely hated it, I don't think it's terrible. Now, it's not good by any means, but it wasn't terrible. Although I did have a lot of fun laughing at how stupid it was, so maybe that warped my enjoyment a little. And I guess this is a better time than any to mention the animation. It's alright. I see what they were going for with the more squash and stretch stylized 3D. It made sense for their first CG film, as half the studio wanted to make a CG animated movie, and the other half wanted to do it traditionally, and so they kind of compromised by combining the two. But I'll hold back on criticizing it too much for now, or making the very obvious comparison to Pixar. For now. You know what it reminds me of? Ratchet & Clank. It's got the same squash and stretch and bouncy movement, which I think looks pretty good. Not $150 million good, but it's alright. I also think the character designs in this movie are all around pretty good. For the main characters at least. Maybe it's my unending disdain for these townspeople, but I can't stand the lack of them. I just hate the way they move, they're all just so punchable. But getting back to the movie, after Chicken Little earns the love of his father, and the whole town I guess, by winning the game, Buck says, "Oh, I hope you didn't think my love was something you had to earn." Oh yeah, cause loving fathers throw their sons to the wolves all the time, right? Jesus, this scene is just so sad. Just when Chicken Little finally has a small morsel of happiness, a little bit of love in his loveless life, another piece of the sky comes down and hits him in the head. And instead of just showing it to his dad and proving that the sky is in fact falling, he rightfully has a panic attack at the thought of everyone hating him again and hides it under his rug. Which is definitely the right call, because I'm sure Buck would probably just think it's an apple and disown him. So he smartly invites his friends over to help him instead. And from here, the fish jumps on the piece of sky and gets taken into space, and now they must save him. And without the fish to use for jokes, they start to lean on the pig a lot more, which, I mean, it's not like the fish was the funniest character ever, but he was at least kind of charming. Although I don't really think the bit with the blackface was very funny. But the pig is just so annoying. He's fat, get it? Yeah, me too, it's just not funny. So eventually they catch up to Fish where they find a flying saucer. That's right, this movie's about aliens now, cause fuck that boring slice of life crap. We wanna see fucking aliens! Yeah, this is another big thing people hate about this movie. The aliens are very stupid. There's not even some cool reason they're here, and honestly, the dumbest thing you can think of will probably be better than what this movie does. So they save the fish, then the aliens come back and see them and think they stole their Furby, but it actually just wandered off for a second, and now the aliens want to come and kill them. And on the way out, the pig, big surprise, is fat, so they unjam him and run into the field to escape. Then Abby says they should ring the bell and warn the town about the aliens, and you can see where this is going. Chicken Little rings the bell after fighting through his PTSD flashbacks from the last time. Notice how much his dad played a role in that. And all the townspeople come out running into the field just in time for the aliens to get away. Oh my god, who could have seen that coming? So, you know what Buck the Fuck does after saying how much he loved his son no matter what like 20 minutes ago? The exact same thing he did last time. So naturally, the town dogpiles on Chicken Little, and he goes home with his dad in shame. Then, as I assume Chicken Little is contemplating ending everything, he sees the Furby thing again, which turns out to be the alien's kid. And the aliens want him back. Just then, the aliens start invading and destroying the town, and Buck is like, "Okay son, you were right all along, now let's get the fuck out of here." Then Chicken Little says, "Great, but I actually know how to make the aliens leave. They just want their kid back." And guess what Buck the, schmuck says? Sorry, I've kind of run out of gut insults. Whatever, Buck still doesn't believe Chicken Little. "Well, I know you were right all along about the aliens and shit, but I'm still a terrible father." The best part about this scene is that Chicken Little tells Buck to fuck off and goes to save everyone himself. So he then runs into the town where everyone gets brutally vaporized by aliens. And we get a bunch of shitty 80s music, which I'm sure was at least 10% of the budget. Then Chicken Little and friends make it to the theater after chasing the Furby thing across town. And this is where Chicken Little finally stands up to his dad.
"You're never there for me."
What?
Okay, that's not what I had in mind, but...
"You're never there for me."
Every day I wake up and I hope you're dead. I
Good, keep going, keep going!
You been ashamed?
I hope you get an illness and then get hit by a car and die. I never meant to. The acorn, the sky, I mean the whole...
But even after that, Buck still grinds his teeth every time he has to force out the words, "I love and support you, son." He just can't do it. He just can't be a good dad. So after they manage to return the kid and do some really stupid Wizard of Oz shit, the aliens put everyone back and reveal that they were just there to see the fall leaves all along. Yep, I told you it was stupid. We then cut a little into the future where they're watching a movie about Chicken Little, and it's kind of funny, I guess. I don't know. The end. I'm done talking about this movie. So that was Disney's first CG animated movie. Again, not the worst movie from them, although the bar is pretty low, but it still wasn't a very good first impression to what's supposed to be their big comeback. So what happened? Well, what if I told you there was an earlier, much better version of this movie that was cancelled for no reason? Yes, believe it or not, a bunch of executives that know nothing about writing forced them to rewrite the movie to what they thought was better. But yes, as I hinted at earlier, Chicken Little was originally supposed to be about a little girl suffering from terrible anxiety, who goes to summer camp and has to save everyone from a bunch of wolves in sheep's clothing who want to eat everyone. The story was based on the director Mark Dindal's relationship with his daughter, and actually still had a lot of the same opening as the final version. But as I said earlier, it most likely started with Chicken Little under a tree giving herself a pep talk before getting hit in the head with an acorn and sending the town into chaos. Which again, would have been a much better and much less jarring way to start the movie, that also would have set up her character better. But the real improvement here is with the dad. They actually managed to make me sympathize with him. In the deleted scenes for this movie, you can see that they pushed Chicken Little's anxiety much further, to the point where she constantly thought her dad was a burglar or some other monster coming to eat her, which leads her to constantly attacking him in a panic. It created this actual rift in their relationship that wasn't just Buck still being disappointed that his son caused a panic one time a year ago. I mean, in one of the deleted scenes for the final movie, you could see that Buck was visibly annoyed that his son was awake and wanted to interact with him. It's horrible. But in the original, Buck makes a real effort early on to connect with his daughter. Is it perfect? No. But it does a way better job at making Buck not such a massive... You know what? I'm not even gonna say it. That's how much these scenes turned me around on him. They turned him from an abusive, neglectful piece of shit to a flawed character that I want to see grow. And that alone would have made this a much better movie. But the fact that they kept a much more slice of life summer camp plot is so much better. Just the idea of this little girl having to overcome her horrible anxiety to save a camp from being eaten by wolves sounds so much more interesting to me than some lame-ass baseball alien invasion shit. So, why did they decide to rewrite this movie if it was already being animated? Well, the changes started small at first. Originally, Michael Eisner, CEO of Disney at the time, just wanted them to change Chicken Little to a boy. Because boys wouldn't watch a movie with a girl, but girls would watch a movie with a boy. Now, this might sound stupid with our post-Frozen clarity, but it gets a whole lot dumber when you know that Michael Eisner oversaw Disney's entire golden age, with such movies as The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Mulan, and Lilo and Stitch. All movies with female leads that did very well. Plus, the last 4 flops from Disney all had male leads. So this was just him being a sexist asshole. Shocker, I know. Now, this was bad enough, having to change your character and plot to be way more masculine. I mean, there was a whole love triangle between Chicken Little, Abby Mallard, and a boy at summer camp that would have to be completely changed, among many other girly things. They should have just flipped Michael Eisner off and made Chicken Little gay. Now that would have been funny. But I get it, they had to keep their jobs. So they were just gonna have to take it on the chin and make it work. But just when they'd gotten over that, a new president took over Disney, and this guy, who is not a writer, or a director, or even a fucking producer, didn't like the way the movie was going. So he told them to redo the whole thing and make it into a sci-fi comedy about aliens. Now, this movie would have already been done by now and would have been much cheaper, but these dumbasses thought they were smarter than the 6 writers they hired to make the movie for them. And so the writers tried their best to make all the stupid alien shit work, and this is what Disney got. It lost $50 million, has abysmal reviews, and worst of all, could have been pretty good, if only they just let it be made. But Disney just didn't respect the writers enough to let them do their job. And that's really why all of this happened. Why their movies have been shit for the better part of a decade. They don't respect their writers. They don't understand that they are the ones making their movies good. It's always been the director or the actors. You never see a movie's writer on a poster, which I'm not saying that's what they should do, but I do think it's a reflection of how little they think the writers matter. Well, that and the fact that they get paid the LA equivalent of minimum wage. Then turn around and give Miley Cyrus $300,000 to yell bolt into a mic for a few hours. Whereas Pixar, besides paying the writers a crisp $100,000 a year, understood from the beginning with Toy Story that no matter how great your animation, music, or acting was, none of that would matter if the writing was bad. So they took classes, read books, and hired experts to mentor them. And by the end, most of the top creatives at Pixar had a deep understanding of writing. They understood that it took 3 to 5 years to finish a script, and that it needed constant attention to get there. You finish a draft, then you throw out 90% and start over. You do that 7 times, and by the end, at least for the first 15 years, they had nothing but masterpieces. Even now, Pixar's president is a former producer, so he spent years helping writers make their movies. He understands what it takes to get something good out of them. But going back to Disney, Chicken Little was only given a measly 2 years to write, which was kind of enough to write something pretty good, maybe. Nothing mind-blowing, but it was technically enough. Plus, the director understood the fail-fast iteration they needed from his time directing The Emperor's New Groove. So they could have definitely made something good here. But then they were forced to rewrite all of that into a completely new movie that they didn't want to make in just 1 year. And that is why Chicken Little sucks. But I think that's just about as much Chicken Little as I can take. It's time to see what Disney can do with their next movie. Meet the Robinsons definitely has much less to hate than Chicken Little. It's actually pretty good, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. Starting on the intro, it's kind of a mixed bag. Everything is here to be really good, but it's also weirdly paced. Like, there are so many great emotional moments here that completely fall flat and just come off as super melodramatic because they don't get enough time to breathe. It's like they're trying to get through everything as fast as possible. But I was interested to keep watching, so it's clearly doing something right. So this movie stars Louis, an orphaned genius inventor who was abandoned as a baby and is now trying his best to get adopted. But no one wants him because he's a weird inventor who keeps making shit to try and impress the parents, but his stuff always fails in some way. And sorry, can I just point out that these parents are just such assholes? A brilliant kid comes out to impress them and they all go, "Ew, he doesn't like sports?" Then when he's showing off his peanut butter invention thingy, the fucking bitch of a wife doesn't just tell Louis, "Wait, don't splooge peanut butter all over my husband, he's allergic." Instead, she just stands there for 3 seconds like a fucking Sims 4 character loading into an animation, then has the gall to be like, "I can't believe you just came peanut butter all over my husband, he's allergic, you idiot." He's lucky none of these parents adopted him, they're awful. But anyway, all of the rejection leads Louis to believe he's too much of a failure to get adopted. But Louis is done with the rejection. His mom left him and now no one else will adopt him. And worst of all, he's about to turn 13, and no one adopts teenagers. He then gets in an argument with his administrator over this, but she tells him his mom probably just couldn't take care of him, not that she didn't love him. Which gives Louis an idea. He's gonna build a machine that can read his memories and see what his mom looked like so he can find where she is and get her to take him back. And also use it for his science fair project, I guess. So that's just what he does. And this is where we meet the other kid, Willman, who claims to be a time cop from the future. And his introduction is just so awkward to me. Like, he just comes out of nowhere and starts acting all weird. Like, I didn't even realize what he was looking for till I read the plot for the movie to write this video. But apparently he's looking for a guy in a bowler hat who stole his time machine. And this would be kind of interesting if they kept him looking like he was just messing around and Louis was like, "Fuck off, I'm not in the mood." Till later, when they reveal that he was telling the truth about being from the future. But no, they just show us right away that the bowler hat guy is real when he sabotages Louis's machine, showing that Willman was telling the truth. But anyway, this causes it to explode and mess everything up. Louis then goes back to the orphanage all upset, with Willman following him there. He then tries to convince Louis that he's not a screw-up and needs to fix his machine, for reasons we'll find out later. But Louis isn't budging, so Willman takes him to the future to restore his confidence.
Hey, let go of me! What are you doing? Let go of me! Okay.
But when they get there, Louis says he doesn't need the memory machine anymore and could just use the time machine they're in to go see his mom. But Willman insists that the memory machine is the answer, but Louis says it's a piece of junk. He then tries to take the time machine by force, causing them to crash. Now Willman will get in serious trouble as the time machine isn't even his, it's his dad's. So he cuts Louis a deal. If he fixes the time machine, then he'll take him back to see his mom. But Louis is still unsure that he can even build anything that works, let alone fix a time machine. Which I think would have worked better if we didn't see the bowler hat guy sabotage the memory machine. Cause it makes it kind of frustrating when I know that he could in fact fix the time machine if he tried. But instead I'm just watching him mope around waiting for him to realize he can do it. But whatever. Louis leaves the garage to go look around, and this is where the movie finally starts to pick up and get a lot funnier, when he finally meets the Robinsons. Like I said before, the whole opening was kind of ruined by that weird, bizarre pacing in every scene, which also messed up a lot of the jokes they were going for. But the whole middle chunk here is hilarious, especially when we get to see the bowler hat guy for the first time. And this would have been a great time to reveal that, oh shit, he really did sabotage Louis's machine. Like, I really see no point in doing it earlier, but whatever. The bowler hat guy has stolen the machine so he can present it to a big investment firm and get rich. But he doesn't know how to turn it on, so he goes back to the future to kidnap Louis so he'll show him. And you know, before I get into all that, I want to talk a little about this animation. It's getting really hard to ignore just how far behind Disney is at this point compared to Pixar. Like, some of the lighting is still so flatly lit with awful textures and materials and shit. Like, some of the lighting is still so flatly lit with awful textures and materials and shit. And the humans also don't look great. Like, Toy Story 2 had better skin shaders than this. Honestly, some of these scenes look worse than Monsters, Inc., a movie that came out 6 years earlier. Which I think is more down to the art direction in a lot of ways. The future is just really unappealing to me. But then some of the earlier bits in the orphanage look pretty alright, so it really is just the way they lit everything, I think. But it only gets worse when you see what Pixar released in 2007. Ratatouille has visuals set like a decade ahead of Meet the Robinsons, and much better animation. Though Pixar has like a 20-year lead on them, so, you know, it's not really fair to compare that. But the visuals are weird to me. Like, is it really that hard to render better textures? I don't know. In all fairness, the animation is an improvement over Chicken Little. It's still got a lot of that weird floaty movement at times, but I'd say it looks alright. Especially the villain, he looks great. Whoever animated him definitely had a lot of fun. From what I understand, this was right around the time when Disney bought Pixar, so they did actually have a lot of animators come in and train them on how to animate better humans. And it definitely paid off. I mean, it's a far cry from the perfect stylized realism of Ratatouille, but it's alright. Now, back to the movie. I think the whole middle chunk of the film here is really funny and all, but they kind of lose a lot of the development for Lewis's character and all the jokes. Like, his whole arc almost pauses for 30 minutes so they can show off everyone in the family. And just when they finally get a scene of all of them talking, which is a good scene, a dinosaur comes in controlled by the bowler hat guy and they all start fighting it. Then in the very next scene, asks Lewis to join their family. Like, none of that was earned. I actually thought I was still in the middle of the movie because we'd barely gotten to see him do anything. He just stands there observing things for half an hour. But after all that stuff, I'd be lying if I said the ending for this movie didn't go pretty hard. Like, even though I saw it all coming, I still think it was executed really well. I won't spoil it here, of course, but I think it all wrapped up really nicely in the end. I just wish the rest of the movie was as consistent. But such is life, I suppose. So why does this movie have so many easily fixable problems? I mean, do I even have to answer that? Now, unlike Chicken Little, and as we'll soon see, Bolt, Meet the Robinsons didn't have some dramatically different version that was scrapped. Instead, after Disney bought Pixar in 2006, they brought in John Lasseter, the brand new chief creative officer at Pixar and Disney, don't look up what he did, to help get their shit together. And Lasseter, seeing an early screening of Meet the Robinsons, suggested many changes to the movie. To him, the villain just wasn't intimidating enough and the story was too dramatic. So they made the bowler hat guy a much bigger part of the movie, added a stronger theme, and changed the whole ending. And when you change the ending, you have to change the opening as well. So all in all, those changes would require rewriting around 60% of the movie. Now, these are all great changes. I couldn't imagine the movie being nearly as good without the villain. But this rewrite would take a lot of time, so how long did they have to complete this monumental task? Oh, around 2 to 3 months. Yeah, that's a good amount of time. Not like it took 3 to 4 years to get to this point or anything. Just for reference, Zootopia also had a big script change towards the end, but they got 26 months to write it. Ratatouille's major rewrite, after Brad Bird took over, was given 18 months. And again, I'm not saying these weren't good rewrites, but they are the most common sense notes they should have been given before they start animating the movie. And now they're rushing this insane rewrite in just a few months? That's not how writing works, it's a layering process. It takes time. I should say again that I really did enjoy this movie. I just wish it'd been given the time it deserved, not be rushed out to fill a time slot and bomb because of it. But maybe the next movie will finally be the one to get Disney out of this pit. Sorry in advance to any Bolt fans out there, but this might just be the most boring movie I have ever had the displeasure of sitting through. And I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but I actually forgot what it meant to enjoy a movie watching this. Which, for most people I'd say, is to feel something. It doesn't even have to be positive. And with Bolt, I'm sorry, but this movie simply did not make me feel anything. Now, that's not to say this is a bad movie. I'd say it's pretty mid, and it's definitely better than Chicken Little, if that's even a compliment. But at least with Chicken Little, I felt something. I felt pure, unfiltered anger maybe, but I felt something. But Bolt just doesn't do anything for me. I'm honestly convinced I was legally brain dead for most of this movie from just how fucking bored I was. Well, okay, now I'm being dramatic, but it really was super boring. So then, getting into the actual movie, it starts with a decent enough scene. We see one of the main characters of the movie adopting the titular doggo himself, Bolt. And this is a really nice little moment. It's a good way to start the movie. But then it cuts to a no-joke, 6-minute long action sequence. Now, you might be saying, a big action sequence? That sounds pretty cool. But trust me when I say that this is possibly the most generic, half-assed, no-stakes fight scene I have ever seen. They never get hurt or struggle or even do anything remotely creative through the whole thing. It's just the same generic blowing up faceless bad guys shit that's been done 100 times before to equally grueling results. Oh, but that's the point, it's a parody, it's supposed to suck. Well, it's not funny or entertaining in any way to me, and it takes up a substantial chunk of what's supposed to be a good movie. But whatever, beyond that massive hype killer of an opening, we're then thrown into this super try-hard monologue from the villain, or whoever he's supposed to be, about how Bolt could have seen a boom mic that was in frame and realized he was in a show, and they need to keep him unaware so he gives a better performance. But this just raises so many questions. Firstly, do they expect me to believe that that entire 6-minute sequence of cars exploding, Bolt using laser eyes, and a 12-year-old girl going 80 miles per hour on her scooter were all practical? No green screens or CGI whatsoever. What about reshoots? What if Penny messes up her lines or Bolt doesn't do what they want him to? And what difference does it make if a boom mic was in shot or a little to the right? It would still be right in front of him the whole time. That and all the cameras. They try and show more of how they did the sets a little later, but they show a bunch of small, easily manageable rooms with no giant explosions or shockwaves. And they show them hiding the cameras behind a bunch of leaves, but I wouldn't know how they managed to hide them in a big open field. Maybe if they'd actually played into how stupid it was, it could have been entertaining to me. Funny even. Like, just make Bolt unable to tell that the shitty sets are fake because he's never seen the real world before. Make the effects more clearly fake and they fix it in post. And make the director more cartoonishly ridiculous about making the sets more immersive instead of, oh no, a boom mic. It could have been funny is all I'm saying. But instead, it's just this generic, boring slog to get through. Again, I'm really not trying to be dramatic here. I love action, and I'm fully aware that I probably sound like a picky asshole complaining about this. But it hurts this entire opening for me when I feel nothing but confusion and boredom the whole time. But you know what? Even if a movie has flaws, just like Meet the Robinsons, I can look past them somewhat as long as I like the characters. This movie follows Bolt after he escapes from the set of an episode to save Penny after a cliffhanger in the show made him think she was kidnapped. This causes him to freak and break out of the studio to chase after her. But he jumps into a window, I guess, and falls into a box unconscious, before getting shipped across the country. Then he meets some birds who tell him that a cat named Mittens knows where Penny is, and Bolt believes them because he's racist and all cats are evil in his eyes.
Can't stop lying, can you, cat? It's in the genes. It's just gross.
Anyway, Bolt, thinking Mittens is a minion of the villain in his show, forces her to go with him to save Penny. Now, this is the part where I'd usually go through the movie while making my iconic humorous observations and saying my funny swears, but I really don't have that much to say with this one. So instead, I'm just gonna run through my broad opinions of the movie and get to the much more interesting production stuff. So the biggest reason this movie was such a slog for me is because there are zero stakes to anything. Bolt's entire goal here is that he wants to save Penny, but like, I already know she's safe, so I don't care. And because of that, this movie needed to have some serious emotional stakes to get me invested. And sadly, it did not. I'm not even certain what Bolt's arc is supposed to be here. So he thinks he's a superhero, and then he doesn't? I guess the point here is that he's supposed to realize that he wants a normal life or something, because by the end of the movie he's all settled down and happily living with the friends he found along the way. But that's not a character arc, it's a situation. He seriously didn't learn anything other than he's not a super dog. It's nothing. And that concludes everything I had to say about the movie, so it's time to talk about the much more interesting version of the movie they ruined. Yep, this was originally a movie written and directed by Lilo and Stitch writer Chris Sanders. And it was called American Dog. It followed Henry, a dog, an American dog, as he lives the luxurious life of an actor in a James Bond-esque TV series. Much like the final movie, he was adopted by the studio and put into this acting life of luxury and fame. But every night he'd be thrown back into his dark, empty room with no friends. But he didn't protest because this is the only life he's ever known. Until one day a stunt goes horribly wrong and he's thrown out of the studio, landing in a train and waking up somewhere far across the country. Trying to get back home, he soon realizes that all the cool shit he thought he could do was all just due to carefully scripted stunts and set pieces. And whenever he tries any of it, such as driving a car, it ends very badly. But luckily for him, he runs into two characters to help get him home. Mittens, an eye patch wearing cat, and Mr. Buttons, a rabbit, who is apparently giant and radioactive in a previous draft. The two of them are hauled up in an abandoned gas station that they've made into their home, and they keep their retirement money in a giant dinosaur statue on the roof. But more importantly to Henry, they keep a car in storage strung up by Christmas lights. So he cons them into driving him back to Hollywood so he can continue his life of fame, which they agree to partly because they're being stalked and chased by a zombie mutant Girl Scout who tries to break in and kill them every night. The plot gets pretty hazy from here, but they go to Las Vegas at some point and meet a waitress named Joe Knight, working at a safari-themed casino, who uses her feminine fatale to get out of sticky situations, whatever that means. They then later go to the swamps of Georgia where they meet the Lady in Black, an ex-circus performer who lives in a mansion and also owns a gorilla chair with knife feet, I guess. I'm not too sure how big a role that would have played in the movie, but it was in the concept art, so I thought I'd just mention it. I'm guessing the Lady in Black probably would have played a pretty big role in Henry's arc of wanting to get back to his life of fame and fortune, with her being an ex-performer and all. Maybe she would have shown him that settling down and living a normal life was better. I don't know, I wish I had more on this movie, but that's it. Now, all of this definitely sounds a little weird, but to me, as long as it had a strong emotional core to ground it, much like Lilo and Stitch, it would have worked very well. And luckily, I think it did. The story seems to be about growing up as a celebrity and how that kind of keeps you from living a real life. You know, there's this belief in our society that fame and fortune will make us happy, that that's what we want, but it's not. It's about having family and friends that love you, and that's what I think this movie was going for. Which, thinking about it now, is the same arc they were trying to do with Bolt. Except instead of trying to get home to his life as an actor, he was trying to save his owner, so isn't that already his arc complete? Like, he doesn't want the fame or fortune that comes from being a superhero or anything. He just starts the movie already wanting to go home with Penny. It makes the whole movie pointless when the only change in his character is just realizing he's not a superhero. Unlike Henry, who learns that fame and fortune isn't gonna make you happy. That's exactly why Bolt was so boring to me, and why American Dog isn't. Bolt just changed everything from the original movie to be more by the bucks and generic, while also losing the point of the original story entirely. So, why did they ruin the movie this time? Well, just like Meet the Robinsons, American Dog was caught right in the middle of Disney buying Pixar, which means John Lasseter was gonna have some notes. Now, if you've heard anything about Lasseter, it's likely just people passionately stroking his dick as they talk about how revolutionary and brilliant he is. But here's a wake-up call for anyone who still thinks he was the godly visionary of Pixar. Just because someone takes credit for everything doesn't mean they actually did it. In other words, he was just another scummy executive that built his career off the backs of actual talent. I don't want to get too deep into the deplorable shit he's done, mostly because I talk about that a lot more in my Pixar video I'm working on. But also, I don't want this video to get all cynical and gross. So, as brief as I can be, John Lasseter was fired from Pixar in 2018 after sexually harassing many younger women at the studio, and he did like them young. And no, he did not just hug too long. He was also the asshole responsible for the so-called dark age of Pixar that everyone hates so much, with him taking the role of Chief Creative Officer in 2006. For example, he was responsible for not canceling The Good Dinosaur even after nobody could get it to work, cause he was a drunk asshole that also happened to be in charge, so no one dared challenge him. He's done a lot more, but that's all I want to say in this video. The point is, he's an asshole. So what godly notes did John Lasseter have for American Dog? Well, after seeing a few screenings, he determined that the movie was too weird and quirky for its own good. First of all, Lilo and Stitch was a huge success, and that was also weird and quirky. And second, that's coming from the director of Toy Story, a very weird movie for the time. I get that American Dog was pretty weird, but I don't really think it looked too weird. But whatever, the God King has spoken. So what fantastic notes did he have this time? Well, boom. The final movie is what they wanted, a safe, emotionless slog. No surprise, Chris Sanders was fired for refusing to alter his creative vision, clearly not wanting to make another Chicken Little, and went on to work for DreamWorks. So he was replaced by Chris Williams and Dan Fogelman, and naturally, they got just a few months to rewrite the whole movie. Now, it doesn't matter how good or not good these guys were. Nobody can rewrite a movie to this extent in just a few months. Or I should say nobody can do it well, cause they did rewrite it, it was just shit. So, I suppose that marks the end of Disney's rough transition to 3D. After this, they finally figured out how to beat Pixar. They bought them. And for a while, they managed to put out a pretty good amount of bangers. But it's not all rainbows and monopolistic takeovers. It seems Disney is once again falling back to their old ways. They're yet again rushing out boring, undercooked slop. Only this time they've found a way to get people to buy it. Sequels. Everyone hates them, yet everyone watches them anyway. But I suppose that'll have to wait for a later video. So for now, thanks for watching.